I see no negative repercussions ever happening in this video. What?
So do you have a script?
No.
Okay. Since I thought those things on your
that is a bullet list of what I have.
Your bullet list. Okay,
that is a bullet
like,
list.
The whole like nothing bad could ever happen was scripted. And you were about to, okay.
Did it sound scripted?
Continue. Also, you need to include that in the video.
I'm going to. Okay. All right, hey guys, it's Shaun here. We're gonna learn how to throw a coffee mug. First, you start with your wedge clay, and I'll probably make a video on that eventually because it's very important to wedge your clay before you start working. All right, so let's throw it on. That was bad. All right. Okay, so you start by centering. And we're using about 1.5 pounds of clay for some, and then under 1 pound for other ones, because I'm making, I'm going to make 4, and they're all going to be different sizes. Okay. All right, so we got our clay nice and centered. I am going to nip the skirt off. The skirt is this little area right in here where your finger kind of meets the bat, and I don't want that on there whenever I start throwing and pulling. So I pull it off, and it sounds counterproductive, but I want to put another skirt on it by resealing it to the wheel head, and that's just so my clay doesn't fly off while I'm throwing. All right. So before you start, you kind of want to get an idea of what shape you're going to make, where you're going to go. Because once you open it, there's no going back. There's no givesies, backsies, or redos once you open it. So for this one, I'm going to have it come out just a little bit, and then I'm going to have it go up into this kind of shape. And that's what I'm going for. If that happens, then I'll be doing good. All right, so I'm going to make the top flat. Just like that, and then I'm going to push my thumbs all the way down in the middle, and you're going to want to get a decent amount of water in there to keep it lubricated as you open the entire body. And you want to leave a fair amount like right in the bottom, and that's so whenever you pull it off the bat, it doesn't actually cut through the bottom of your pot. And now it's open. I'm going to start pulling. And pulling, you always do from you switch hands. Centering, I do this way. Pulling, I go dominant hand on the outside, and non-dominant hand guiding from the inside of the body. And there's a few different ways to pull, so I'll show the 2 or 3 ways that I know how to. So there's the entire hand, where you put your entire hand on the outside and pull up like this. And then there is the thumb and forefinger method, which I prefer over any of the other ones, which you use your thumb and your forefinger, and then you use your index finger to hold the upper part of the body in place. All right, so let's do the first pull. So first pull, you actually want to pull from the inside a little bit to open it, because we want our hole that's in there to spread out to where it has a nice flat even bottom. And that's what we're doing here, is we're actually pulling with our left hand from the inside, and that gives us a spread out, like kind of flat bottom to our coffee mug. And then for the next pull, I'm going to use my dominant hand to pull up on the body. And I'm using my thumb and forefinger to do this movement. And now, once you do your first pull, you want to slow it down. Up to this point, I was going between medium and full speed. But now I'm going to be working only between low and medium speed. And what I'm doing right now is compressing the rim. If you do not compress your rim, your coffee cup will chip or crack right at the brim of the coffee mug. And if that happens, it's not going to be fun to drink out of because you're going to nick your lip on a stray piece of clay. Alright, so we're going to do the second pull. And for this pull, you want to pay attention to the shape that you're starting to make it. And as I pull it, I usually slow down the higher I get on the body. And that stops it from just falling open on me. So now we're at a decent size. And we're going to come back up to the brim, compress it. Pretty much every pull you want to compress the brim. You cannot compress it too much unless you start pushing your pot down to be smaller. It's the only way you can compress it too much. It's getting wobbly on me. Alright, now it's in the shape that I want. And for this particular coffee mug, I'm actually not going to be trimming the bottom. So I'm going to take this time to use my wooden rib tool to kind of trim the skirt off and tidy up the bottom. And I'm actually going to use it to shape the body as well. So right here I'm trimming off the skirt. And like I said before, I wanted that curved body all the way up. So I'm trimming the skirt off. And then I'm going to use my fingers, and they're going to be pretty wet, to guide from the inside. And then I'm going to push with my inside fingers into the rib to give it a nice body shape. And then that is the coffee cup shape. And this is the second part that is also equally important to compressing the brim, is that we want to compress the base. And then we're going to recompress the brim because that's important too. So we're going to shove this guy in here, and we're going to only compress the very bottom by shoving the sponge inside of our pot or coffee mug. Everything's a pot until you put a handle on it. Remember that if you don't put a handle on it, it's a pot, and you can put flowers in it. And then we're compressing the brim. And remember to be very gentle. Like if you noticed in the side view of that, the clay got kind of wobbly whenever I sprung the sponge off of it. You want to move into your clay very gently. Think of it as a person standing there. If you go in and just push them by their shoulders, they're going to move around. Same with your clay. This is the shoulder of the pot. So the bottom is the butt. This is the belly, and then when it starts to curve back into the top, that's the shoulder. So a vase, the bottom is the butt, the midsection is the belly, and then it comes into the shoulders, and then it has the little headpiece on top. So if you're referring to different parts of a pot, they're the same as body parts. Fun fact. And then we're going to clean the bat, just because we don't want it to be messy. And since I'm not trimming this, what I'm going to try to do is get it a little dry with a torch. So I really just want the outside to be really dry. Not really dry, but not so wet that if I touched it, it would leave fingerprints. And this is really what I'm just going to do, is hit it really lightly with a torch. And that's going to get the outside to be a little bit more dry. So I'm going to dry my finger off. I'm going to give it a tap and see. And that's exactly where I want it. And now I'm going to set it over here. And then we're going to make 4 more. And now to check yourself, what I usually do is I'll take a needle tool and I'll run it all the way down the edge. And then I'll press it into the bottom, and then go to the other side and push it all the way down. Go in the middle, make sure the bottom's cut through, and then I'll grab it and push it all the way over like that. And then I'll take this tool right here and scrape this off. And you can see the entire cross cut of my body. So at the bottom, you can see where the clay is thicker, and then you can see this is the bottom, how thick the bottom is. If I were to throw something, this bottom is a little on the thin side, but because I'm not trimming it, it's actually pretty adequate. I would go for maybe a millimeter or two thicker if I could cut every piece in half and just look at it. And on the side, I probably would nip in to the bottom a little bit more to get the bottom thinner. So you can see as it goes up, your clay is going to get thinner. And that's because it's harder to fight gravity the taller your piece gets. But this I'll show you as a cross section of what's happening. If I pinch this at the bottom, you can kind of see how as I put pressure on it, it makes the bottom thinner, and as I pull it up, it also makes everything else thinner. So think about this kind of motion, but your clay is spinning around and around and around and going through your hands. And that's how you get your upward movement. You're literally pushing the clay in a way that it wants to be pushed up. Like that. You're just kind of boa constrictoring your clay. And if you get too thin, it'll break apart like that. And that's kind of what I was experiencing at the top. It was getting a little too thin. And that's kind of the cross-section view. So once you start throwing and you get pieces that are made, it's a really good idea to get some cross-section cuts. Because you could never really know what's going on inside your piece unless you cross-cut it. And that'll give you a really good idea of like how you can trim, how much tolerance is in your piece, and overall it's a good practice. Like a few days ago, I threw a vase and cut it in half just to make sure that I'm still doing the right consistency through the clay and all those types of things. So it's just good general practice to do it every once in a while. But you also ruin your piece, so I guess you can't do it all the time.
That should be fine.
Okay. We are going to make the handles for this. And this is in the same session, so these have sat for approximately 30 minutes. And now we're going to pull some handles. So to pull a handle, you need water, which I set way over there for no reason. So I'm going to grab that. Oof. I'm going to set that precariously close to this coffee mug to make you uncomfortable. And then what I'm going to do is get a ball of clay. And it's recommended that you wedge it just decently, or just make sure there's not like a whole lot of air in it. You really can't mess up a handle, and if you get air trapped in it, you'll see it really easily. It's something that's really hard to miss if you have like a weird lump in your handle when you're pulling it. So we're going to take this, and I like to put like my thumb imprint on it and make kind of like a lip to grab onto, because this is going to get really slippery. Because we're going to pull the handle, so I make little finger indents for all my fingers to sit in. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to dunk it in this clay water. So now what I'm going to do is basically just kind of grab it and just start like pulling it. Demonetized.
Demonetized.
This is going to be my ongoing joke. Is just demonetized.
Just like pixelate that whole area.
Can we
let me work out? Play the saxophone music
and just like. Okay, you can stop now. Let's see. All right. So to pull a handle, basically you want to make this kind of like you're like totally like checking someone, like bam, checked. You're gonna make that kind of shape, and I like my clay to be kind of thin. I want it to be like thin and flat, like a ribbon. So that's how I pull my handle. So a lot of times I'll like grab my fingers and run it this way. But the most important part is to always keep it very wet. Like it has to be soaked, like the whole time. And then we just keep doing it. And this is really hard to do. You'll mess up every handle you make. Every handle. You'll never make a good handle. So just accept it now, and good enough is good enough. But it's a real time-consuming process to make a really good handle. And I use my hand because instead of like rolling it out or using some kind of mold press, you get a lot more natural of a feeling handle. And I feel like I have more control over the shape than I can make it. But they do make molds. If you really try to make one of these and you just really can't, there are molds that you can buy to make handles because it is very hard. I think I spent about 6 months learning how to make handles properly. And then once I learned how to make them properly, I refined kind of the ribbon method that I do now. And basically for the ribbon, I just take my fingers and do a couple strokes with just my fingers to give it that thinner than it is wide kind of feeling to it. Don't worry, Philip just killed himself on the wheel.
Killed a bull. Now bull dead. It looks like
Okay.
Mount St. Helen now.
So now that it's pulled, what I'll do is I'll kind of let it set like this. I'll use my finger, and this is going to put the shape into it, and I will put it onto the bat that my coffee mug is chilling on, and just let it sit there. But in this case, I'm going to let this one sit behind me, and by the time I get over there to doing these other two, it should be done. So, done setting up. So we're going to set this behind me, and so since I don't know what I'm doing, I'm actually going to put this handle on wet. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I have figured out in my mind that the body and the handle should be close enough that I should be able to put them on wet without any cracking or any of that. So we're going to take the needle tool. We're going to get our hands very clean so we don't leave that many fingerprints. And we're going to cut it right there. And then we're going to go to the other side and we're going to cut it right here. And it should stay where it is. Okay, now we're going to dry our hands off even more. And then we're going to grab this with our hands. And now we're going to take the bottom. We're going to kind of get it going. Make it a little rounder. So that way it doesn't have any sharp edges on it. Now normally whenever I do this, I would make my handles like before, or I would make them all after and let everything sit for a while. About an hour or two is a good time to let a handle sit, and you can have your coffee mug body be all the way up to leather hard. But basically we're gonna, and this is a thick handle. It's a really thick handle. I could have gone twice as thin. But we're going to grab it onto the body and push it on. And then we're going to bring it all the way down and push onto the bottom one. Okay.
Yeah, this camera can't see that at all.
Could it not?
Not really, no. Yeah, that's how you should have done it.
Okay. R.I.P. my whole life. So should I
And
do?
it turned to me like, crap, can you take it off and do it again?
Meh.
Try again next week.
Yeah.
Or wet some more clay and do it with one of those.
Okay. Okay, well, since I totally didn't shoot any of that, I'm just going to stop my audio, and then I'm going to make
I
another.
wouldn't stop your audio, I would just go.
Well, I have to stop the video anyways, because it's going to run out before I wedge it and pull it anyways.
Alright, I'll do another one.
All right, all right. That's how you make a coffee mug the quick way. Thanks for watching, and if you like the video, like it. And if you like the video a whole lot, then you can subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified for any time that I make a video. Thanks for watching. Oh, I'm excited.
You didn't plug your Patreon page.
I don't have a fucking Patreon. Let's see.